Hello and welcome to Weekly MTG. I'm one of your hosts, Blake, and then over that direction. Yeah, Steve.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Good. As is tradition, after a big esports announcement, we have brought the two big hitters from our esports program, Bear and Ben, on the program to talk about the announcement, to answer as many of your questions as possible, and to chit chat with the people.
Yeah,
and
it's good fun.
make sure that
We
the
saw
lines
them
of
down there
communication.
just now. It was great.
Yeah, they were there. They'll be back.
Yeah.
But first, Steve. Nope.
Yeah,
Wait. He's going to do the news.
We got some news. So the news today, we've got banned and restricted update that happened this week on Monday. We're going to put the graphic up there. Historic, Arena's premier constructed format, only found on Arena, had quite a few bans and suspensions. So for those of you that aren't as familiar with how Historic works, usually a card will spend some time on the suspended list. It'll be taken out of the card pool temporarily, and if it proves to be a problem or not be a problem, they'll either keep it on the suspended list, take it to the ban list, or take it off suspension. So what happened here was Agent of Treachery, Winota, Joiner of Forces, and Fires of Intervention all got banned from the suspended list, I believe. And then Nexus of Fate actually skipped the suspended list and went straight to the ban list. Burning Tree Emissary went from being playable to suspension. So those are the current bans and suspensions from Historic. We also had quite a few other formats get some changes, and we'll go to the next slide. Potentially. We'll go to the next slide. There we go. Pioneer, Modern, and Pauper. There we go. Pioneer unbanned. Oath of Nissa, the one-drop green legendary enchantment. Modern got Arkham's Astrolabe banned, and Pauper saw a banning of Expedition Map and Mystic Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary, Blake's possibly favorite card from Throne of Eldraine. So those are the bannings and unbannings. Only one unbanning this time for Pioneer. But check it out. You can see more information about the justification of the bannings, unbannings, and suspensions on Daily MTG. Additionally, we have another thing that we talked about last week, but I'm going to reiterate this week because we're talking about competitive play. We've got the Arena Open coming on August 1. Beginning August 1, goes through August 2. You can win up to $2,000 in cash prizes. It begins August 1 at 8 a.m. Pacific time, and the format is Historic constructed. So day one will be the same as the last Arena Open, which is best of one play constructed, and then if you qualify for day two, that day of play will be best of three. So those are the details of the Arena Open. You can find out more about the Arena Open and how it works on Daily MTG. Finally, we have a couple of other pieces of news that are unrelated to the last two, though somewhat related to our topic today. All of Magic Esports stats and history is now found through magic.gg. So if you're looking for some of those historic records, you can actually find it in the history menu item in the navigation bar at the top of magic.gg. So if you're looking for some of that historic context, go check it out. You can click on history. You can see a lot of that data stored on magic.gg now. Secondly, we have PT finals coming up. Players Tour finals are coming up next weekend. You can view them on twitch.tv/magic. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about the Players Tour finals as we continue with our topic today. Right, Blake?
Absolutely. We're going to talk about all things esports. So let's bring up Bear and Ben. Bear and Ben, hi. How you doing?
Not bad.
Good.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, you guys staying sane during all of the quarantining and whatnot? We haven't had you on the show in a while.
Wow, tough questions. Yeah, things are going all right. It's summer in Seattle though, and it's my second one here, and it still amazes me.
It's really hot right now though.
I'm surviving most days and just trying to work off my quarantine 15. That's about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we've got a lot of people in chat who I'm sure have a lot of questions for you two. And basically, so everyone knows how this is going to run, we're going to assume a little bit that you've read the announcements from Tuesday. If you haven't, I definitely suggest that you head over to magic.gg to read both of the announcements. We did two of them, one about the Zendikar set season, and then one about kind of the way the MPL and Rivals League are going to be working. We're going to assume that you know those, and we're just going to answer a bunch of questions that have come up between now and then that you put in chat, and that we've got ready to go, that we've seen a lot over the last couple of days. And so we're just going to kind of queue up Bear and Ben and ask them questions and go from there. So if you care about Magic Esports, be here, throw your questions in chat, and we're going to get to as many as we can. I cannot promise we will get to all of them. As you can tell, I like talking, and I don't stop sometimes, and so we run out of time.
That's true.
We
That's
are
true.
going
I can confirm that.
Yeah. We are going to dive into it. So let's start, Bear. Let's talk big picture. What were the goals of this system, and why now? Because it caught a bunch of people, kind of looking at it in between. And explain yourself, basically.
Yeah. So the goal of this system is to provide some competitive play opportunities while we work with partners to add additional ones, and then work on the plan to re-add tabletop. The system is temporary and very much a response to COVID. We'll be working on pretty large-scale changes to these structures during the course of this season in the hope that we can introduce that system and tabletop play as soon as it's safe to do so. But yeah.
Okay. Now, Ben, as Bear mentioned, we haven't been able to do tabletop play because we can't gather, we can't meet. And working from our questions, I'm skipping ahead one. So, Ben, what is the tabletop team working on right now when we can't hold tabletop events?
Our first priority has been wrapping up this year's Players Tour. We had a few months of it at the beginning of the year, and we want to make sure that we did the best job we could at satisfying players who had earned invitations in Series 1, and kind of adjusted. We first, obviously, we tried to push events back, and then when it became clear like that wasn't going to happen, we moved them to Arena. That all wraps up next weekend with the Players Tour finals. And so looking forward, we're kind of, it's the benefits and the curse of the situation where we have this blank slate, and because there aren't events running. And so we're spending this time really thinking about like, what would, the optimal program look like for competitive play? And, take this time to rethink all the assumptions we've made over the last 2 decades, think about how we can make events more accessible for players all around the world. How can we grow more local and regional events, and take that, work on that plan, and then kind of work backwards and see how we can roll that out while we kind of come out of the effects of COVID. We're also kind of really focusing on how we can expand what play means, and not just thinking about competitive play, but thinking about all kinds of experiences, things like Command Fest and Command Zone for fans of Commander, and really kind of integrating those systems more so that you have just more opportunities to play. You might have weekends that have qualifiers and a Commander event, like that kind of like better integration, because we have this time to kind of rebuild out the infrastructure from scratch.
Okay, so you expect that when we do come back from tabletop, it's not necessarily going to be the same system we just had. It'll look different.
Certainly. Well, 2 questions. In the short term, like we expect like COVID, the impact of COVID will be different across in different regions, and some will be able to start in-person play earlier than others. But then as far as like what the final system is, like we're not, I'm not saying we're going to make changes. We haven't made those decisions, but we are taking the time to really think about like the best way to bring opportunities to play to everybody.
Okay. Barry, let's switch back to you. And there was, like I said, one of the 2 big announcements we made was the makeup and how people make the MPL and make the Rivals League. So let's start by talking about that system. How did you guys arrive at the give and take between the MPL and Rivals and Challengers? And we've got a couple graphics that we can throw up while you're chatting about those leagues.
Challengers is kind of a catch-all term that we use to group anybody who's not within the league system. It can seem a little silly, just makes things a lot easier as we're explaining the program. But with this season, we want people to aim to be a pro Magic player, and that starts with Rivals. Not shoot for the top, but make it there and be able to work hard to stay in the system. We also want people to be able to have great years, be rewarded with the place at the top. And if a player works hard and performs well, they should be able to stay in our pro system due to that stability in Rivals. To us, especially during this season, making Rivals should be the goal, and making MPL is an extra reward for MPL, Rivals, and Challengers who are having a great year. And we want to guarantee that high performers from all three of those starting points get to experience that. So this is definitely a shift in strategy from previous years, and it's by design that at least for this interim system, more churn exists.
Speaking of that churn, a question that we've gotten a lot is why the churn specifically for the MPL is as high as it is.
Yeah. So with the reduced opportunities to play competitively for everybody, and then only having 24 slots at the top end to reward excellent performers at the end of the year, we ended up reducing the overall stability in the leagues. We needed to find a way for both Rivals and Challengers to have ways to access the top end, especially in a world with one of our platforms shut down, limited number of events we can run, and an uncertain future. So I've definitely seen, and I think we've all seen some criticism that some of the churn feels forced, and I think that's fair. This season, we wanted to be able to guarantee that Challengers could access the system, and this is how we chose to do it with some of the constraints that we had. So we guaranteed that some number of Challengers would actually make the leagues, not just be put in contention, and we didn't want to be put them in a situation where a Challenger managed to do what we asked them to do to be eligible and then fall short year after year. So we know it's not perfect. It's a half step to accomplishing some of our long-term goals, especially with COVID. But that said, we hear loud and clear that even pre-COVID, folks were unhappy with the new systems, lack of access points to the top end of play, and a real lack of achievable milestones that some of the older systems provided. So as Ben mentioned, that's something we're going to focus on heavily when redesigning competitive play for when we can relaunch tabletop.
Okay, so you just mentioned redesigning tabletop play again. So this is not, you would say, the long-term vision of what MPL and Rivals will look like necessarily?
Yeah, that's correct. I wouldn't expect fans and players and people within the system shouldn't expect a few kind of tweaks here and there to this system. Reintegrating tabletop, and especially with the feedback we've received over the last couple of years with the new systems, it needs a kind of more comprehensive approach, I think.
Okay. So looking at the system now versus your perfect system in the future, which I know you guys haven't designed yet. One of the questions, I'm kind of paraphrasing a question in chat. Do you envision there being more access points for Challengers in the future, fewer, or where do you feel the level of access for Challengers is at now on the spectrum?
Yeah, it was definitely fine-tuned, at least in the previous 2 years, to be the pendulum swung away to the side of stability for the folks that were currently within the system, and it was really difficult to kind of get into it and sometimes get out. With this system, there's introducing a bit more access for Challengers, but the limited number of slots at the top end really hamstrings our ability to offer those opportunities and feelings of accomplishment to all the players participating within the system, especially during a competitive year. So I think the things that will probably feel similar is creating play opportunities around sets. I think that's something that'll definitely stick around, but top end competitive play, it's still something the team has to dig into. But I'd wager it'll look pretty different than what it does now.
Okay. Let's kind of take a step back and pretend you're a player starting from scratch. No rank, you've never been a pro before. What should your goals be?
Do not have to pretend. Done.
Okay, take Steve. Take Steve as an example. If Steve were, left Wizards or was fired tomorrow for insubordination, because that's such a Steve thing to do.
That's good.
How would he make it to MPL? How would he make it to MPL or Rivals?
Yeah. So Steve, if you're just starting out, The best way you can get involved, anybody, is by getting top 1,200 on the ladder over the course of a set. Each ranked month will have ties to a qualifier weekend. If you do well in that, you make it to the Zendikar Rising Championship, where you'll face the MPL, rivals, and other qualified players. Doing well in that event unlocks a path to the league structure. So you can find more details in our announcement on magic.gg, but it's really a 3-step qualification path.
Mm-hmm. And there, the graphic we just had up on the screen is the qualification path to the Zendikar set championship. So talk a little bit about how you guys landed on these set championships, these sort of sequestered seasons.
Yeah, the biggest thing was that we had to design groupings of play that we could kind of measure and account for, that was also modular enough to allow us to kind of insert tabletop connectors from season to season. So we needed to break up the competitive chunks to allow us to do that. So that, and also I think our events are better tied to kind of the natural kind of health and duration of a set. So closely tying our events to the start and midpoints help us just have better competitive opportunities for players. So it's something we really liked. It's something that with the old system, just with how the calendar year worked, it was not possible, which is why we had kind of a funky little partial season this year before COVID hit. And so we're going to be moving more towards set-based play that just allows us to structure play a little bit more intelligently.
Okay. Slaterade in chat kind of set up my next question anyway. Ben, when are we going to start seeing limited tournaments at higher levels? Obviously, not being able to do tabletop through a wrench and all of our high-level limited plans. What are we working towards right now with regards to limited at higher levels?
Limited tournaments on Arena are incredibly important to us, and we want to support them as soon as we can. There's some technical work that we have to do in order to make those structures launch and run like the standard qualifier weekends, but it is really important to us. For players who do want limited, this weekend is the first limited super qualifier on Magic Online with M21 sealed. Those super qualifiers do invite players to the Zendikar Rising Set Championship. In addition to limited, their modern, pioneer, and standard super qualifiers on Magic Online. And top finishers there will get invites to the Set Championship, and also an arena account set up with all the cards they need, so that they can play Arena even if they don't currently have a collection there.
Okay, so there are paths to the upper levels right now that even if you don't have an Arena collection built up, you can find a way there. Is that correct, Ben?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Next question. Yeah, this isn't related to anything we've been talking about, but it's next on my list, so let's just ask it. Isn't this just the Pro Tour? Why won't you call it the Pro Tour?
For this year, we just don't think it really fits with the legacy of the Pro Tour. With tabletop play paused, it's leaving out so much of the kind of play and experiences that really define the Pro Tour. And it didn't make sense, even though these are championship systems, but this is not the Pro Tour. Last year, when we moved to the league-based structure, we wanted to kind of differentiate between what we had done before and with the focus, the new one with the focus on MPL and introducing arena play. I know, since as we've kind of iterated on that, a lot of people are starting to see that there are similarities to the old systems. So I understand the question, but I think that bringing about the Pro Tour, I don't think is about just the name. I want to make sure that we bring back kind of the legacy and the experience of playing Magic in all the ways, and not the limited systems we have this year.
Yeah, so calling this the Pro Tour is kind of an insult to what the Pro Tour once was. that what you're saying?
It feels it. It feels like that,
Mhm.
and you know, I've been a fan for a long time, and it's important to me, just like lots of other people here at Wizards and our fans and our players. Like, and I think we should get that right um, before we bring that back.
Okay. Next question I have lined up is for Bear. If I have already qualified for the September qualifier weekend, what incentives are there for me to be playing right now?
Yeah. So there's no competitive play incentives if you're already qualified that are going to be tied to ranked play. That said, that's still where you're going to find competitive matches and strong opponents. So if you're the kind of player who loves competition, and if you've already qualified, you probably are. You can find that competition at the top of the ladder. But if that's not the way you want to practice, or you want to take a break from the ladder grind and take a well-deserved rest, that's completely fine. Just know not all of your future opponents might. So there's also other events to play in, like Super Qualifiers, Red Bull events on MTG Melee, SCG Tour Online, and plenty of other events that are popping up. So if you're looking for competitive events to sink your teeth into, there's lots of stuff to sign up for.
Mm-hmm. So just a clarification question from Gurmag in chat. If I was top 1,200 in June, am I set for September?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, Slaterade asked a question that mirrors a question I got on Twitter, so we're gonna jump to that one. It's about, I'm gonna kind of paraphrase it here. Actually, I'm going to use the question from Twitter, but Slaterade, this is kind of your question. For players who have had success from right before or after COVID hit, are there any efforts or possibility of retroactive benefits, such as qualifications being awarded based on those finishes, or is it just an unfortunate niche that gets punished due to friction adjusting?
Yeah. So we know a bunch of people were kind of unfairly impacted by COVID and the need to kind of stop one part of our system and transition to the new interim system to support this weird COVID stuff. So we don't have any firm plans, but we're looking for ways to either offer make goods or things that we can do for those players. But not having tabletop as part of the program limits the amount of opportunities that we can kind of offer those players that would be meaningful and feel like a replacement. So it is something that's top of mind and something the team really cares about. And it's not something that's just kind of being ignored and is just an unfortunate circumstance. It's just hard to promise anything right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys have a list of like who had fractional points and who qualified for this thing that was canceled, and you'll just keep that in mind as you move forward, kind of thing.
Yeah, as you can see on magic.gg in the history tab, we keep a record of everything. So, well, that was my biggest surprise coming to Wizards and just seeing old photo negatives and like library shells of all this stuff. And I was like, I am just surrounded by history. This is amazing. So, anyway. Yeah.
Somewhat related, while we're in this period right now, is there any discussion of any sort of milestones outside of MPL and Rivals? Like, I know you guys built up the fractional invite system before all this came crashing down on our heads. Are you looking at anything like that in the interim?
In the interim, no. We're trying to find and provide as many just competitive play opportunities as possible, both online with the current system and then tabletop when it's safe to do so. But as we mentioned, we talk to MPL pros all the time, both in one-on-one conversations and in a group setting. Enough of us have TweetDeck open with different Twitter columns, kind of following community feedback and paying attention to the things that are going on. Like I mentioned, we know that there's a kind of lack of access to top-end play and just a feeling of just milestones that you can achieve. So there's nothing in the interim, but we know those are huge pain points for a large portion of the audience.
Yep. Makes sense. Let's see. Next question I got, and I'll take another one that came in through Twitter. This one's a longer question, so stay with me while I read it. What are your thoughts on player engagement in the medium term with Magic Esports? From my perspective, talented and qualified players outside of Rivals and MPL League are becoming disenfranchised and less invested in the game. Even recently, MPL and Rivals members have the outlook that when they fall out of the leagues, their chapter competing in Magic will close. Are those trends something OP is aware of? Yeah, take it from there.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of dovetails off the question we were just talking about. We're definitely aware of it and have these conversations with pros. And I think everybody has a right to be have a feeling of exhaustion. We've gone through 3 to 4 large system changes over the last 2 to 3 years. So some of them in our control, which we apologize because it's definitely been a bumpy road, and some of them are not haven't been in our control. So we are definitely aware of the feedback, and it just kind of goes back to kind of some of the flaws with the kind of closed top end system not meeting a lot of the audiences and fans' needs right now. So it's something that we have to kind of reevaluate and dig into, because we're definitely not just going to revert back to the old system. There's things that weren't accomplishing the right goals and things that we'd like to change about that as well. So it's really about finding just what's the right thing for competitive Magic going forward, especially when we can restart tabletop.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's see. Ben, I think this is when you had some, I won't say information, but you had an answer to this question, I know. Do you have any news on the delayed Magic Online Championship?
I up front, I don't have anything to announce right now. We are working on how to execute that event. So that event had the qualified players flying into a studio and playing, and obviously that's not something we can. We don't feel like it's right to ask. We don't want to put players or production people at risk. So figuring out how to do that on whether it's online or if it's delayed. We're looking at all the options, but we know it's we know it's rescheduled. We know people want information, and we're going to try to get it to you as soon as we can.
Okay. Another question from chat. This is for both of you. What was the greatest difficulty encountered during the creation of the new competitive system? Bear pulls out a list of all the things.
The beginning was definitely really plagued by just uncertainty. We started by trying to reschedule events, and then it feels it feels crazy now looking back that we thought this was going to be 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks long, and then things would start to return to normal. So we kind of started off already really kind of having to spend a bunch of time to think about just how do we wrap up the last year? How do we kind of connect those events together so that people had done well, get recognized for that, and then for the next year, Bear talked about this earlier. One of the reasons we went with this set season model was to kind of give us this ability to adjust structures a little bit, with each roughly 3 to 4 month period from between expansions, so that we can move very quickly and launch more play if it becomes safe. That was really important to us. We don't want to wait. We want to have a very rigid system that requires us to wait for an entire year before we can add programs to it again. So that was figuring out how to design that in a way that was both fair for players who did well in the season, but also gave us some flexibility. It's a balancing act. Sometimes it's really good to just describe everything, both for us internally and for players, they know exactly how everything works. But we did kind of take on some of that pain of being a little bit flexible, so that we're not locked in and force people to wait.
Okay. Bear, how would you answer that question?
I mean, I think the biggest challenge is just lack of opportunities. I mean, playing paper Magic in the Gathering is a really important part of not just competitive Magic, but Magic. So not having access to provide those opportunities and different formats, a lot of things are shut down, and our ability to design around that shutdown is tough. So, I mean, having to design a modular system with an uncertain future that balances all the audiences we're trying to support, with half our platform being shut down and not knowing when it can come back, kind of puts us into a spot where we have to produce and offer a lot of uncertainty to fans. So it sucks and it's tough, but I think the system we landed on is pretty solid and offering a lot of competitive opportunities for folks that are looking to scratch that itch during the interim season. And we're excited to get back to a sense of normality and a more comprehensive system as much as everybody else is. So yeah.
Okay. Bear, I'm going to ask you kind of a related question, and I'm putting you a bit on the spot with this one. It was a good question in chat, but I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. Obviously, we get a lot of feedback on, I don't like this part of the system, or why did you do this, or why did you do this? Can you talk more broadly about why you think there is sometimes a disconnect between what our vision is for competitive play and some of the vision of people we get feedback from, players in the community specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a bunch of reasons. One, it's we're designing for a bunch of different audiences for a really old game with legacy systems that people are really attached to and did really good things, while also trying to support the new with kind of a coming up, offering new opportunities to both the same and a new audience. So trying to balance those two is always going to be tough, and so you're going to get conflicting feedback no matter who you talk to. The other one is just we've changed a bunch of stuff really fast, and goals and intentions have not always been clear, and then kind of things change from year to year, and that's sometimes in response to larger esports industry stuff. Sometimes that's a response to COVID. Sometimes that's just a response to things not working or accomplishing the goals that they should have been. So that's where I think a lot of the frustration over so many system changes within a short period of time is why we're taking a step back and trying to figure out how do we balance this thing and produce something that does balance online stuff with tabletop, but still hits a lot of the points that people really enjoy. So yeah, the frustration and the disconnect is, I think, largely a symptom of fast moving stuff, us not being always best at clearly communicating our goals or when they shift. Moving goalposts is definitely something I've seen in a frustration from folks, and yeah, it's something we're trying to fix.
Okay. Ben, another question from chat. Would we ever, while we're still in this COVID world, would we ever move back to doing online Grand Prix?
I assume they're talking about like the Magic Fest online
Yeah.
tournaments. Okay. Like we are kind of continuing to experiment with that. One of the things that's not very obvious when going from in-person play to online play is that in-person play, you're competing against people that are local to you, like in your city, in your region. But when you're playing online, you're playing against everybody in the world. And so those like online events like Magic Fest Online were really hard because it wasn't the best 1,000 people in the Western United States. It was the best 1,000 players in the world. And so thinking about like how do we make sure that those events are there are enough opportunities, kind of there's a menu of events essentially, so that players of different levels of experience can still have a good time, and that's kind of where we're trying to tweak. I think the Arena Open is the closest thing right now to that kind of Magic Fest Online. So if you're looking for a highly competitive event, that's a great outlet. Star City Games is doing the SCG Tour online. That one has a bunch of history. Star City runs a great. The Star City Games Tour is always gotten great feedback from players. They like the structures. I think that's kind of more of a regional event. So that could be options. And we're just going to kind of explore building a menu so that there's people can find the right fit.
All right. Back to Bear, because I know we've had a couple of conversations on this, and I've been in conversations that we've had around World Championship and qualifying for it. So I'm just going to read this from chat. What were your thoughts behind not tying the World Championship into the new championship structure? Isn't it weird for the audience if an MPL member won all 3 set championships but fell slightly short in the MPL season, MPL Gauntlet, and not make the World Championship? I know we've had a lot of conversations about these sort of corner cases. What if somebody wins everything, or what if somebody wins nothing and then spikes this thing? So what are your thoughts on those qualification paths to the World Championship?
Yeah, it's something the team's actually really split on and is still talking about. Like, what should Worlds be long term? I'm a pretty recent Wizards, but reinviting the world champion back the following year seems to be something that is relatively recent, and the previous OP teams have gotten rid of it, and then kind of a corner case happened, and then it made sense to kind of maybe readjust back to that because Worlds was trying to accomplish something specifically. This Worlds is a kind of it's a weird Worlds that I don't think is the ideal kind of tournament structure we'd have in place if we didn't have COVID. I will say at first glance compared to other past World structures, it probably is a little strange and a little different compared to past stuff. I can't really comment on the philosophy too much because Worlds is a product and a thing that's designed and built by a lot of team members. So, but we could, if that's a topic that folks want us to dig into, that's something we can cover in the next esports update for sure.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Pulling out some questions in chat. Ben, we'll go to you for this one. Any thoughts to bring nationals back? This individual really enjoyed UK nationals and only got to play in it once before canceled.
Those kind of regional and local events like nationals are absolutely something that's on the on the board right now for us to consider. Not only do they create these there's this passion and history attached to nationals that people remember for years. You see a lot of new faces foresee current success at those events, and they also kind of make sense in a world where COVID has kind of limited international travel. Some regions want to start quicker than others, and that's often going to be based on how well the country is kind of handling COVID and managing the impact of that on the people there. So absolutely a possibility. It makes a lot of sense in like these kind of local and regional focus. The exact details, are things we're going to be working on over the next couple of months, but it's certainly a real option and something we're working on. See if that's part of the right fit for the not the perfect structure, because there's never going to be a perfect structure, but kind of a well, like a comprehensive competitive play structure that we try to create lots of opportunities for players of all types.
Okay. Ben, we're going to stick with you for a second. I know we covered this earlier in the show, but I think we're getting some people tuning in a little bit later. Can you talk about the future of limited tournaments in the Magic Esports upper echelon? You can basically repeat what you said earlier, but for the lead audience.
Maybe. All right. Take two. Like I said earlier, limited competitive play on Arena is really important to us. We're not holding off on it. We are going to support it as soon as we can. Things like qualifier weekends in limited formats would be great. I don't have a date for that, but it is something that's really important to us. Right now, though, you can qualify for the Zendikar Rising Set Championship on Magic Online. The first super qualifier. The first limited super qualifier is this Saturday. It's M21 sealed. Next month we have some double masters sealed events. So if that's really what you're looking for, Magic Online is a great option. And if you do qualify on Magic Online, We will be providing those players with arena accounts with a full collection so that you'll be able to participate in the set season championship.
I think that was pretty accurate to what you said earlier. So good job. I think let's see. We're nearing the end. I do have we've kind of answered this throughout the show, but I think it's kind of a great capstone question. So Bear, you kind of answered this earlier, but I think it's a good one to end on. So from DZ Sports 8 asks, in a post-COVID world, will there be a full re-examination of organized play?
Yeah, we're actually starting meetings in 2 weeks to kind of go behind the scenes and just really get our heads together and understand what the old system did and what we didn't like about it, what the new system did, what we didn't like about it, and what the opportunities we have with kind of half the platform being shut down and us being able to really just take a broad examination of what is and is not working. We know, I mentioned before, we know, especially with the new system, folks are frustrated with the lack of access to the top end, as well as just a lack of achievable milestones along their competitive journey. And it feels like an all or nothing battle towards the top with these limited slots. So, we have to take a look at it because I think the feedback is pretty loud and clear.
Okay. Bear, this is a very important question from chat. What's your dog's name?
Oh, that's Elvis. He's just hanging around. He's a good boy. I'm pet sitting at the moment. I've had it's some other team members. There's like 5 other dogs that have popped up in here. So,
gotcha. I am still getting occasionally questions I know we can provide some kind of answer to. Can we confirm the grand finals is happening still, and when can we expect a date for it?
Grand finals is definitely happening. I'd have to check with the team on when we can get the date out. I'm not sure what's holding it up yet.
Soon, trademark. I was having a discussion with Stibbs about it earlier. It's soon, but not yet. Yeah. Okay, if anyone would like to provide feedback, is there an address we could do so at? I'm going to suggest most feedback is best if you send it to our Twitter account at Magic Esports. We have someone behind the scenes who is awesome and who actually compiled most of the questions that we asked on this from all of the feedback we've received over the last couple days. So if you want to be heard, the questions we've asked in the show are a great example of the fact that those do filter up from the Magic Esports account to coming out of Bear and Ben's mouths when we can get them on the show. So definitely ask them there. They will get to the people who need to see them. So I think we're going to wrap that up for the week. Bear, Ben, thank you for answering questions. Chat, if you didn't get your question answered, it's either because it didn't have to do with esports, this team, so like the technical stuff for Arena, that's not really Bear and Ben's area, so we weren't going to ask them that. Programs unrelated to esports, that sort of stuff, not their area. So I'm not ignoring you. Your question might just not have been one for Bear and Ben, but feel free to tweet them at us, and we will answer them as best as we are able. Next week, Steve, what are we doing next week on the show?
Well, Blake, I don't know if you know this. I don't think that you do. There's no way that you would. It's not like you plan it or anything. But next week is the start of Double Masters previews, meaning that next week we are going to have a Double Masters stream to talk a little bit about that particular set and what's coming down the pipe. So we're going to, I think we're going to have some previews that day, right?
Yeah, Mike Turian's going to be joining us. And we're going to be right in the middle of Double Masters previews. So we'll talk about the set. We'll talk about, we'll reveal at least one card, maybe 2. I forget exactly how many on the stream. And we'll talk about Double Masters some more. So thank you, everyone, for joining in. Yeah, that's our show for today. We will see you next week.
See you again soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.